Before we get started, thank you all for being here on relatively short notice. I'm happy to be joined here by my Chief Assistant, Jesse Smith, Yvonne Murray, Molly Lee, Sarah Eisenberg, Christine Van Aken, and Ron Flynn from my office. Thank you so much for being here. As you are all well aware, today the United States District Court for the Northern District of California issued a nationwide injunction enjoining enforcement of Section 9A of President Trump's recently issued Sanctuary City executive order. This is why we have courts, to halt the overreach of a president and attorney general who either don't understand the Constitution or choose to ignore it. This is why San Francisco had to stand up on behalf of people everywhere, be they immigrants or native born. As Americans, we all have a duty to confront injustice even when it emanates from the White House. Because San Francisco took this president to court, we've been able to protect billions of dollars that fund life-saving programs across this country. In San Francisco alone, about $2 billion was at stake. Without it, thousands of San Francisco's most vulnerable residents would have lost access to meals and medical care. Police, fire, and ambulance services would have faced cuts. Roads and public transportation would have fallen into disrepair. Because San Francisco stood firm, that's not going to happen here or anywhere else across this country. We're grateful that others joined us, whether it was bringing their own lawsuits, like Santa Clara County, Richmond, California, and others, or standing with us in court, like the dozens of cities and counties from across the country that filed legal briefs supporting our case. The court found today that the Trump administration's arguments were not only not legally plausible, the court sided with us on every substantive issue. I hope this president learns from his litany of mistakes. His first 100 days have been a disaster, but I hope for all of our sakes that he can turn it around. It's not often that I see eye to eye with Senator Rand Paul, but on one point at least, we're in agreement. He said, quote, "I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat, there is something profoundly un-American about using the brute force of government to bully someone." That's what President Trump tried to do with his executive order. We said no, and today the United States District Court agreed. The president is selling fear. He is trying to paint all immigrants as criminals, and nothing could be further from the truth. We are a nation of immigrants, and we have been since our country was founded. And that is why it is inscribed, the Statue of Liberty is inscribed with the long-celebrated credo that has greeted millions of immigrants that entered New York Harbor. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be breathe free. 600 jurisdictions across this country have sanctuary city policies to protect and enhance their communities. All of those communities want their residents to help stop criminal activity, to build a cooperative relationship with law enforcement, to have residents not fear taking their kids to get vaccinated by a doctor or take their kids to school. That benefits everyone. What we don't want to do is spend our limited resources destroying communities, doing the federal government's job for it. In the process of doing that, we'd also shatter the trust local government has worked hard to build with all communities. Federal, state, and local government need to work together. It is not the job of local governments to carry out immigration enforcement on behalf of the federal government. That's the federal government's job, and the Constitution is very clear. And the federal government can't force local governments to do its job for it. The president sought to bully local governments with an unconstitutional executive order, threatening all of their funding. He sought to coerce local governments into holding people in jail beyond their release date. Today, the court said unequivocally that tactic violated the United States Constitution. Now, many of you are aware that we have also, in our action, we filed a claim saying that Section 1373, the law that the executive order was based on, is unconstitutional. It has always been San Francisco's position that we comply with Section 1373, but we're continuing to fight the constitutionality of that legal provision in court. And if some of you are probably aware, we have a hearing with respect to that claim in the case management conference May 2nd. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions, as will my deputies. Thanks very much. Anybody?
What happens specifically in terms of the budget process? I mean, most likely this will be appealed. I mean, we're still kind of in limbo, no?
Well, we're not in limbo. There was a nationwide injunction issued today against implementation of Section 9A. So as far as we're concerned, we can move forward with our budget process. This was designed to bring certainty to the budgetary process, and that was one of the issues that the court focused specifically on. So we're going to move forward with our budget process here in San Francisco. That's something that will occur over the course of the next several months, and I think it's pretty clear that other jurisdictions across this country can do the same.
It's got to be one of the weirdest feelings, because it's like you're relieved, but you're also still kind of fiery and angry. Can you sort of describe the emotions of just since he took office and what this has been like with regards to the sanctuary city policy?
Well, I think that, especially here in San Francisco, we have a tradition of openness and trying to foster a community when it comes to how we carry out the responsibilities that we all have in local government. What disappointed me the most, and I think was of concern to those of us that are responsible on the ground to provide services to our populations, was the divisiveness that came out of Washington and the White House with respect to the issue of sanctuary and immigration more generally. We have responsibilities here to make sure that all of our residents feel that they are part of their community, that we can keep streets safe, irrespective of whether you're native-born or foreign-born. This uncertainty, this vilifying, has made our jobs infinitely more difficult. And with today's ruling, I am hopeful that we are going to get back on the course of cooperative government, that we're going to foster the relationships that make communities safe and work together. So we're happy, but we're disappointed that it had to come to this, and hopefully this is going to be a message that this is what we have to do in order to make sure that we have safe streets and good communities. Yeah.
Are there certain federal grants that do require ICE compliance, and how much money do they account for in San Francisco, and where do they go? What programs do they go to?
If you go through the order, you'll see that there's at least one provision that we see, a JAG grant, that here in San Francisco is we get about $1.5 million that is not dealt with on a substantive basis. So the door is still open if the federal government wanted to try and do something with respect to that, but certainly what is at issue has been dramatically reduced to the single-digit millions, potentially as low as $1.5 million, but there's still uncertainty in that, and we'll see where it goes.
So the fight will continue. Can you talk more about what will happen on May 2nd?
That's just a case management conference about what we want to do with our claim with respect to the constitutionality of 8 U.S.C. 1373, and we're still examining how we want to approach that in light of the ruling today. Any other questions? Yeah.
I believe the Department of Justice sent a letter to the State Board of Rehabilitations on Friday about JAG grants. Does the city have any concerns right now about JAG funds being cut?
I don't, because we have always taken the position that we are in compliance with 8 U.S.C. 1373, irrespective of whether we think it is an unconstitutional intrusion or not. And we have certified that we are in compliance.
Is there any, we've seen with previous executive orders, the administration coming back and kind of rewriting things to try and make it better. Are you expecting anything like that in this case, or do you think it'll not come to that?
Well, I don't know, I can't speak for the Trump administration, but I think they'd be well advised to move on to other issues and stop trying to divide communities and pit communities against each other. I think that if you read the order that was issued today, it's a fairly strong rebuke as to what has occurred so far, and we remain vigilant in making sure that we are not going to stand by and have the Constitution turned on its head. So I think that it'd be best if folks just move on. Yeah.
More kind of symbolic rebuke as opposed to a substantive rebuke, or do you think?
Oh, I think it's pretty clear all the way around. It's more than symbolic. It is substantive on virtually every issue that the court found in our favor.
Can you speak a little bit to kind of the Steinle case? Trump used that as a battering ram against the city, and now you're here with this victory in court. Do you think the city should have dealt with it differently when it happened, or do you think that has no bearing on what's going on now?
Well, I think this. I think everybody can agree that the Kate Steinle case was tragic. And my heart goes out to her family and any family that loses a child, especially in as tragic a manner and circumstance as occurred there. I think it's unfortunate that her death was politicized. And I'm not going to, I think we need to separate out the issues. That is the issue of sanctuary cities and whether they are beneficial or not has nothing to do with the tragedy of Kate Steinle's death, and that shouldn't be utilized by folks for political gain. And I think it's time that the president and others stop using it. If we learn one thing in this case, it's that words matter, and what the president said in public as a candidate and after he was sworn in certainly impacted how the court viewed this case. And despite the fact that he said some things in public and then his lawyers went into court trying to say something different, that inconsistency hurt the presentation of the government's case. So I think it's best that they move on from that and just focus on the law. Yes?
Clarify, you said that $2 billion could have been at stake, and we're also talking about grants in single digit, $1 million.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Well, anywhere from, we have about, the city and county of San Francisco's budget's about $10 billion. And there could have been at risk, in the broad sense, anywhere from $1.2 billion to $2 billion at risk for everything from Medicaid reimbursements, public infrastructure and transportation funding, law enforcement grants, environmental grants, housing. All those things were potentially on the table when you look at how broadly worded the executive order was and how vague that it was. So, and that was precisely why we had to bring a lawsuit, Santa Clara had to bring a lawsuit to bring certainty and clarity to what was at risk.
More questions, guys?
Yeah.
Well, what exactly is the city's policy on detainer requests in sanctuary? Maybe you said that, but could you?
Well, it's pretty clear that complying with detainer requests are voluntary. There's reasons for that. Many courts have held, courts around this country have held that to hold someone beyond their release date and to comply with those detainer requests are Fourth Amendment violations, so we don't comply. But at the same time, if someone comes through with a valid court order or a warrant based on probable cause, we will respect that and adhere to it. And we, with respect to immigration status and the requirements of 8 U.S.C. 1373, we fully comply with the requirements of federal law. But I think what's pretty clear, if you go look at, I think it's about page 40 of today's opinion, it's pretty clear that we are right with respect to how we handle detainer requests. Thanks very much.